Ethan Cole stared at himself in the employee bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the man looking back. The expensive suit he usually wore had been replaced with a faded gray janitor's uniform. His neatly trimmed beard had grown scruffy, and the hair he always styled with precision was now hidden under an old, worn-out baseball cap that looked like it came from a second-hand bin. The flickering fluorescent light cast faint shadows on his tired face, making him look like a completely different person. And perhaps that was exactly the point of this mission. 20 years of building a movie theater empire from the ground up. Every brick laid, every screening room opened, every blockbuster he helped bring in. And now, all he had in his hands was a mop and a name tag that read Keith. It wasn't just a name. It was a shield, a curtain separating him from his own power and reputation. "Remember why you're doing this," he muttered to himself, voice low and coarse, a reminder of what truly mattered. Ever since that anonymous email arrived last month, his mind hadn't rested. The accusations were heavy: unfair treatment, poor working conditions, collapsing morale across the staff. In the past, he might have ordered an internal audit, but this time was different. Ethan needed the truth, unfiltered and unedited. He needed to see it, hear it, live it himself, and he knew exactly where to start. Grand Plaza Cinema, the crown jewel of his entire chain. He chose the night shift. Less traffic, easier to observe unnoticed. As he pushed the cleaning cart into the main lobby, the smell of buttered popcorn and the distant hum of movie soundtracks tugged at his chest. Memories surfaced. The first batch of popcorn he ever made, the first floor he ever mopped, the first row of seats he ever arranged with his own hands. This was where it all began. And now, this was where he hoped to find something he'd lost along the way. A faint whisper caught his attention from behind a large movie poster. Ethan stopped. Two young girls in theater uniforms were speaking in hushed, urgent tones, clearly trying not to be heard. He lowered his head, pretending to mop, but his ears were focused. The taller girl, Maya, wrung her hands nervously. "Maya, this is insane," whispered the shorter one, Lila. "We could end up in jail." Ethan paused, his hand still hunched over his mop. His grip tightened as he heard Maya's trembling voice. "I know, but he said he'll break Tommy's legs. I can't let that happen to my little brother." In that moment, Ethan's blood ran cold. He'd come here expecting to uncover management issues, maybe payroll mishandling or toxic scheduling, but this was something else entirely. This was crime. This was desperation. This was a family on the verge of collapse because of medical bills. "How much do you owe?" Lila asked, voice shaking. 8,000, Maya sighed. "The hospital bills just kept piling up. No bank would lend us anything. Mom's working 3 jobs. Marcus, he seemed like the only option at the time." Marcus, the name hung in the air like lead. Ethan didn't know who he was yet, but from Maya's tone, he knew this was a dangerous man. He should report them. Call security. Stop this before it went any further. That was the rational choice. But something held him back. Maybe it was the fear in Maya's voice, or the way she held herself together like a thread stretched too thin. She didn't look like a criminal. She looked like a girl cornered by a cruel world and left with no other choice. Maya lowered her voice again. "We do it tomorrow night, during the superhero movie premiere. Everyone will be distracted. No one will notice. If anything goes wrong, you have to promise to run," Lila whispered. "Don't wait for me." Footsteps approached. The girls quickly separated, slipping back into their roles like nothing had happened. Ethan stood silently, mind spinning. On one hand, he was the owner. He had a duty to protect the business and its people. On the other, he was once a poor kid too, raised by a single mother, scraping by. He knew all too well that desperation wasn't always born from bad choices, but from the lack of any choice at all. He pulled out his phone and opened the employee database. Maya Thompson, 19 years old, 8 months of service, perfect attendance, 3-time Employee of the Month, stellar customer reviews. Lila Chin, 18, similar record. These were model employees. Until now, and now, Ethan, the man who once clawed his way from nothing, was left with a decision: to be their judge or to be their salvation. He walked past the girls again, still wearing the face of a nameless janitor. Their posture shifted instantly from friendly to formal. The energy changed. Ethan caught it. "Thompson!" barked a voice from across the lobby. Rick, the manager, stormed over with a sour scowl. "That counter better be spotless. Last night's cleaning was trash." "Yes, sir. I'll do better," Maya replied softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan watched Rick stride away, eyes narrowing. Something was off about this man. Not just his rude demeanor. There was something deeper, more dangerous. A rottenness he couldn't yet name. But he wasn't ready to act just yet. He needed more. And he had only 24 hours to uncover the truth. To understand not just what Maya and Leela were planning, but why they'd been pushed this far. And once he knew that, only then would he decide whether to stop them or to help them. The next morning, Ethan arrived early. In his now familiar janitor uniform, he stood near the break room, pretending to clean windows while his eyes scanned the inside. Maya sat alone, a cold cup of coffee beside her. She stared at her phone, frantically typing. Deep shadows under her eyes told of another sleepless night, and her hands trembled slightly as she checked what looked like a banking app. 20 minutes, she whispered, pulling out a small bottle of pills. Ethan recognized them as basic over-the-counter painkillers. Still, it stung, knowing she needed them just to get through the day. Suddenly, a text popped up on her screen, and she flinched. Even from across the room, Ethan could see the threatening tone. One message mentioned Tommy. By name, Lila entered, her voice light but edged with worry. "Rick's looking for you. He's pissed again. When is he nut?" Maya muttered, managing a tired, bitter smile. She swallowed the pills quickly. "What's it about this time?" "Low sales yesterday. He's threatening to cut our hours again." Her face faltered briefly but then regained composure. Ethan saw it. The look he'd once seen on his mother's face whenever the phone rang with another bill collector. It was the look of someone drowning in obligation, with no lifeline in sight. Ethan watched Maya closely the entire day. She didn't take a lunch break. She ate a granola bar in stolen seconds between customers. When an elderly woman struggled with the ticket kiosk, Maya spent 15 minutes helping her, while Rick shouted from his office about line efficiency. Later, during a rare quiet moment, Ethan overheard Maya on a call. "Yes, Tommy, I'll be at your therapy session. Don't worry about the money. Big Sister's got it covered." She quickly wiped away a tear as customers approached. That afternoon, Lila whispered again. "I checked. Mike's smoke break is exactly at 10:45. That gives us 12 minutes. "I know the safe code," Maya replied. "Rick uses it all the time while yelling at us. He never even notices we're standing there." Before they could say more, Rick thundered into the lobby. "Enough chatting. Push those combo deals. You think popcorn sells itself." Ethan clenched his jaw. The man he had trusted with one of his top theaters was the reason everything was falling apart. Rick wasn't just bad at his job. He was toxic. He had built an environment where fear and burnout were standard practice. That night, Ethan loitered near Rick's office. Through a cracked door, he overheard a chilling phone conversation. "Yeah, we're cutting corners," Rick snorted. "These kids don't need breaks. If they complain, fire them. There's always someone else." The owner never even checks in anyway. Ethan stood motionless, fury boiling beneath his skin. Everything he'd worked for, every value he tried to instill was being mocked and dismantled by the very people he'd empowered. He was no longer just an observer. It was time to act. Yesterday's numbers were terrible, 20% below target. Do any of you know what that means? Rick paused, his eyes scanning the anxious faces of the staff. It means some of you might be out of a job by the end of the month. Ethan stood near a trash bin, pretending to sort recyclables, but his gaze was fixed on Maya. Her face had gone pale. Lila, usually composed, clutched her notepad so tightly her knuckles turned white. No one spoke. Rick wasn't managing. He was threatening. This wasn't a workplace anymore. It was psychological warfare. Thompson, Rick barked again. Your popcorn sales were the worst. Explain yourself. Maya stepped forward, her voice trembling. Sir, I was helping an elderly woman who had fallen, so excuses. Rick cut her off with a sneer. This is a movie theater, not a hospital. From now on, if you go above and beyond for a customer, you'll be penalized. They can figure it out themselves. Ethan felt fury rise in his chest. The core values he had built his company on, compassion, respect, and a customer-first experience, were being shredded right in front of him. Throughout the morning, Ethan tracked Rick's every move. He used a stopwatch to time bathroom breaks, berated staff for minor errors, and reminded everyone that they were easily replaceable. When a young employee named Jason asked about his promised raise, Rick scoffed in front of everyone. If you're sick, don't come to work. I don't reward weakness. But my mom was in the hospital, Jason said softly. Not my problem, Rick replied coldly, walking away. Around midday, Ethan overheard Rick on the phone in his office. Yeah, I've got it handled. The owner's a softy who believes in all that welfare crap. I just tweak the reports. He never double-checks. Each word hit Ethan like a blade. The employee surveys, the anonymous feedback channels, the quality audits. Rick had been sabotaging them all from the inside. Later that afternoon, Ethan discovered even more. Rick had created an unofficial blacklist of employees who spoke up, labeling them as problematic. Maya's name was at the top for excessive time-off requests, which Ethan now knew were due to taking her brother Tommy to therapy. When a security guard named Mike reported that a hallway camera had been broken for weeks, Rick waved him off. Too expensive to fix. Just patrol that area more often. That area was exactly where Maya and Lila planned to enter that night. Rick hadn't just neglected security. He had practically created the opportunity for crime. At the end of the day, Ethan watched Rick confront Maya again, this time over a $5.00 discrepancy in her register. I'll pay it back, Maya pleaded. Oh, you will, Rick said with a smirk, by scrubbing the bathrooms tonight. Off the clock, of course. Ethan had to excuse himself to the restroom to stop from breaking character and confronting Rick on the spot. When he returned, he found Maya sobbing in the storage room, Lila kneeling beside her. I can't lose this job, Maya cried. Tommy has treatment next week, without insurance. We're doing it, Lila said, her voice colder than ever. Tonight ends this. Ethan backed into the shadows. The puzzle pieces had finally come together: greed, neglect, and desperation. But he still faced a decision: stop a crime, or save two young women clinging to their last shred of hope. He didn't need to hear another word. Every fiber of his being screamed, enough. Ethan quietly pulled out his phone and called the head of security. His voice was low but firm. I need everything you can find on a loan shark named Marcus operating near the Grand Plaza, and get me Maya Thompson's full file, family background included. The report arrived just hours later. Ethan scanned through it, his heart heavy. Tommy, only 14, was battling a rare spinal disorder. Their mother worked multiple jobs but still couldn't cover the extensive treatment costs. Maya had been picking up every extra shift she could, never missing a day. But when Tommy had a serious fall requiring emergency surgery, Maya was left with no options. That's when Marcus Wells stepped in. A known loan shark with a history of violence, Maya had made a desperate deal to save her brother's life. That evening, the air inside Grand Plaza felt thick, as if the walls themselves could sense the coming storm. Ethan, back in his janitor's uniform, moved through the theater with quiet purpose. He needed to understand just how deep Rick's role was in all of this. During a short staff meeting, Rick shouted, "Yesterday's sales dropped 20%. You know what that means? Some of you won't have jobs by the end of the month." Each word landed like a blow. Maya froze. Lila tightened her grip on her notepad. "Maya Thompson, your numbers were the worst. Explain." "I was helping a customer who had slipped. And no excuses. This is a business, not a charity. New rule. No extra help. Do your job. Nothing more." Ethan clenched his fists. Every principle he believed in, empathy, integrity, human connection, was being bulldozed by a man he had trusted. All day, Ethan documented everything. Rick denied a staff member time off for their wedding. He threatened to fire a pregnant woman for taking too many bathroom breaks. He mocked customers who complained about broken seats. Rick wasn't just incompetent, he was toxic. Ethan uncovered even more. Rick had been fired from 3 previous managerial positions for similar behavior. Somehow he had manipulated his references and evaded scrutiny. He even bragged to his assistant about pocketing funds from repair budgets. "It's all about the bottom line," Rick said repeatedly, missing the irony that his methods were killing profits. By late afternoon, Ethan saw Maya serving customers with trembling hands and dark, sleepless eyes. Lila glanced at the clock, giving her a look. They were getting close. Ethan lingered near the maintenance closet, pretending to inventory supplies. His phone was recording everything, just in case. "It has to be perfect," Maya whispered. "The money's being picked up tomorrow morning. This is our only shot." "I double-checked," Leela replied. "The blind spot behind Theater 3 is still there. Rick didn't fix it." Maya suddenly disappeared into the bathroom. From the hallway, Ethan heard her retching. When she emerged, her face was wet, but her eyes were cold steel. A decision had been etched into her soul. "Tommy just texted," she said to Lila. "Marcus sent someone to watch our house. They know where he goes to school." Ethan's stomach dropped. He touched his phone. His team had built a solid case against Marcus, but if they moved too soon, it could trigger retaliation. He needed to wait just a little longer. The final movie ended at 10:30 p.m. Rick exited his office, jangling his keys. "Thompson, Chen, you're closing tonight. We've got inspections tomorrow. Don't let me find a single popcorn kernel on that floor." He paused, smirking. "Oh, and the security cameras in Sector B are acting up. Stay clear of that area. Got it?" Ethan nearly exploded. Whether through negligence or design, Rick had just handed them a perfect opening. At 10:40, Lila made her move. She walked briskly to Mike, the security guard, with just enough worry in her expression to be convincing. "Hey, Mike, something's weird with the projector in Theater 6. Might be smoke, not sure." Mike checked his watch and sighed. It was time for his usual smoke break anyway. "All right, I'll check it out." As Mike disappeared, Maya slipped quietly down the back hallway. Ethan followed silently, blending into the shadows. His security team was already in place outside, ready to step in if needed. 592D4, Maya whispered, barely moving her lips as she entered the code on Rick's office door. Her hands were shaking. The lock clicked. Ethan watched from the darkness as she entered the room, her steps deliberate, like she had practiced this in her mind 100 times. She reached the safe. The keypad glowed a faint blue. It was an old model, one that should have been replaced years ago. She typed in the default code. The door opened. Inside was more cash than she expected. more than enough to pay off Marcus and give Tommy another chance. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears spilling as she reached for the money. "I really am." Ethan felt his chest tighten. In all his years of business, he'd never seen a clearer collision between systemic failure and human desperation. Just then, Maya's phone lit up. The glow revealed more tears. It was another message from Marcus. This time, a photo of Tommy sleeping in his hospital bed. "No, no," she gasped, nearly dropping the cash. Her walkie-talkie crackled. Lila's voice, urgent. "Mike's heading back. We've got 20 seconds. Maya shoved the cash into her bag so quickly that bills scattered across the floor. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably. She dropped to her knees to gather the fallen money when the walkie-talkie crackled again. This time, with Lila's panicked voice. Rick just came back. He's walking into the theater." Ethan's head snapped up, his eyes sharp with alarm. Rick wasn't supposed to return tonight. If he found Maya here, everything could spiral out of control. Not just for her, but for Tommy too. Maya froze, clutching the bag of cash to her chest. From the office window, the glare of headlights spilled across the hallway. Rick's voice echoed from the lobby. "Who left these standees out of place? Thompson! Chen!" I can't," Maya whispered, her voice as thin as a thread, then slowly sank to her knees. "Tommy, I'm sorry. I tried." In that moment, Ethan knew he couldn't let this continue, not even for one more second. This wasn't the time for punishment. This was the time to save what was still salvageable. Rick's footsteps grew louder, threatening with every step. In the surveillance room, Lila was frantically trying to delete camera footage while also stalling Mike. It was a ticking time bomb. One wrong move, and it would all explode. Maya's future, Tommy's health, Lila's loyalty, Rick's crimes, and the very soul of the theater chain Ethan had poured his blood, sweat, and youth into. As Rick's shadow stretched across the doorway, Ethan stepped out from the darkness. It was time for the truth to surface. "Stop right there, Mr. Carter." Ethan's voice sliced through the tension like a blade. Maya froze. Rick stiffened. "What the hell?" Rick hissed, reaching for his phone. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," Ethan replied calmly, stepping into the light and removing his janitor's cap. "Ethan Cole, owner of Grand Plaza Cinemas." Maya stared at him, her face pale, eyes wide with disbelief. Scattered around her feet were the bills, a living testament to her desperation. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Lila was running toward them. Rick stammered. I caught these two trying to..." "Be quiet," Ethan said, for the first time letting the edge in his voice show. "Maya, pick up the money. Lila, come inside." He pressed a button on his phone. Two security officers stepped into the hallway, their eyes locked on Rick. "No one leaves this hallway until everything is sorted out," Ethan said, his voice composed but commanding. Lila entered slowly, her expression wavering between fear and resolve. She moved quickly to Maya's side, helping her collect the scattered cash with trembling hands. Ethan turned to Rick first. His tone turned icy, slicing through the air. "You're fired, effective immediately." Rick froze. "I have been undercover for 2 days documenting your behavior. Wage theft, harassment, safety violations, and signs of embezzlement. All of it has been recorded. Security will escort you off the premises. My lawyers will be in touch tomorrow morning." Rick opened his mouth to protest, but the security officers stepped forward, leaving him no choice. The once authoritative manager was now being led away, his angry protests echoing uselessly through the hallway. Like the last gasps of a dying era, Ethan turned to the two girls, his voice softened, calm and sincere. "Now let's talk about Marcus Wells." At the sound of that name, Maya's knees buckled. She would have collapsed if Leela hadn't caught her. Her face went ghost white, as if she'd just heard the devil's name spoken aloud. "How do you know?" Maya whispered. "I know everything," Ethan said, pulling up a chair and sitting across from them. "I know about Tommy's condition, the hospital bills, the debt, the threats. I've been listening since I overheard your conversation 2 nights ago. Are you going to have us arrested?" Lila asked, her voice heavy with fear, but not entirely without hope. "No," Ethan answered, surprising them both. "I'm here to help you." He leaned toward Maya, his tone steady and full of belief. "First, Maya, I need to know exactly how much you owe Marcus, and I need to see the threatening messages." With trembling hands, Maya took out her phone and scrolled through the messages. Ethan studied each one, his expression darkening with every threat. A digital trail of abuse, manipulation, and fear. 8,000, not including interest, Maya whispered. He said, "If I don't have it by morning," she couldn't finish the sentence. Lila gently squeezed her hand. Ethan pulled out his own phone. "Listen to me. I have a team that's been monitoring Marcus for the last 48 hours. With your messages, we have enough to take him down. But we need you to file an official report." "He'll hurt Tommy," Maya cried, her voice nearly breaking. "Night," Ethan said gently. "I've had your home under protection all night. Tommy and your mother are safe. The hospital has already been notified to heighten security." Tears welled up in Maya's eyes. "Why would you do this? We tried to rob you." "Because I was once exactly where you are," Ethan said softly, as if revealing a long-guarded secret. 30 years ago, I worked in a theater just like this one. My mom was killing herself to pay off hospital bills. The owner of that theater helped me without asking for anything. Now, it's my turn to do the same." He pulled a document from his jacket pocket. "This is a formal agreement. I'll pay off Marcus immediately. No more threats to your family. In return, you'll help law enforcement bring him to justice. And you'll repay me, interest-free, in small, manageable installments." "No pressure." Maya shook her head, nearly overwhelmed. "That's too much. Too kind." "It's not kindness," Ethan said with a faint, sad smile. "It's an investment in good people forced into impossible situations by a broken system." He turned to Lila. "And in the friends who'd risk everything to stand beside them." Lila lowered her eyes, lips pressed tight. Maya looked at Ethan, then at the paper. Her hand still shook as she took the pen, but the fear in her eyes was gone. As she signed, it was like a boulder had been lifted from her chest. Lila wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Calm, Ethan said, holding up his phone. "And Marcus is done. Are you ready?" Maya glanced at Lila, then nodded firmly. "Yes, I want this to end." Ethan made the call. On speaker, the voice on the other end confirmed. "Proceed. Maya Thompson is officially filing charges." In the distance, they heard police sirens scream through the night. Maya broke down in tears. But this time it wasn't from fear. It was from release. She buried her face in Lila's shoulder as Ethan quietly stepped back, giving them space to breathe, to begin healing. Moments later, Ethan's phone buzzed. Marcus has been arrested at his residence. Evidence of numerous illegal loans recovered. Tommy and his mother are safe. Ethan turned to the girls, his voice gentle. "Tomorrow, we start fresh. New management, new policies, new opportunities. But tonight, go home, rest. For the first time in months, sleep without fear." As they turned to leave, Maya hesitated. She looked back at Ethan. Why did you let me go through with it? You could have stopped me days ago." Ethan looked out at the horizon, where dawn was just beginning to break. "Because sometimes," he said, "people need to hit bottom before they can look up and realize there's still hope. I needed you to see that even in your darkest moment, There's always a choice to do what's right. The girls were escorted out, protected and safe. Ethan stood alone in the office, watching the first light of morning spill across the worn hallways. A place that had just witnessed a night of reckoning. It wasn't just Maya and Lila who'd been given a second chance. Grand Plaza had too. It had just gotten its soul back. A month later, the energy inside Grand Plaza Cinema was entirely different. Gone were the fearful glances and slumped shoulders. Employees walked with purpose, self-respect and pride, knowing they worked somewhere where people mattered more than profits. Ethan stood in the newly renovated lobby, taking in the transformation he had helped spark. The broken cameras had been replaced with high-end surveillance. The worn-out seats had been reupholstered with soft, comfortable fabric. But the most meaningful change wasn't in the bricks or wiring. It was in the people. At the popcorn stand, Maya, now proudly wearing an assistant manager badge, was training a new employee with care and confidence. If a customer needs extra help, don't hesitate to take your time, she instructed warmly. Our top priority is making them feel welcome. Not far away, her younger brother Tommy sat in his wheelchair, eyes sparkling with pride as he watched his sister work with strength and grace. Lila, now the security coordinator, walked past holding a tablet, reviewing the new surveillance system. She'd proven not just capable at management, but had proactively introduced innovative safety protocols that made every employee feel more secure with each step they took. Maya, Ethan called gently as she approached, a report folder in hand. The staff satisfaction survey for this month is ready, she said with a smile. We had 100% participation. Ethan accepted the folder, a soft smile forming on his lips. He remembered when these surveys had been meaningless, manipulated under Rick's regime. Now the numbers told the real story, and that truth filled his heart with warmth. Take a look at the results, Maya beamed. The satisfaction scores had soared. The new policies, simple yet effective, had made a real impact. A living wage for all employees, health insurance that kicked in from day one, flexible schedules to support family needs, and a clear path for anyone with potential to advance. Lila joined them, her tone low but proud. The anonymous support line got its first call yesterday. An employee at our downtown location needed emergency dental surgery. The assistance fund you created covered everything. Ethan nodded, a quiet sense of fulfillment rising in his chest. Since Maya's incident, he'd established an emergency fund across all theaters. No one would ever have to turn to loan sharks again. Oh, and Leela added quietly, Marcus's trial is scheduled for next month. With Maya's testimony and all the evidence we've gathered, the DA's confident he'll face serious prison time. The investigation had uncovered a web of predatory lending, with dozens of victims now coming forward. Marcus had been arrested, his assets frozen, his criminal network dismantled. Tommy rolled over, glowing with excitement. Maya, show Mr. Ethan the thing. Maya chuckled, pulling out her phone and opening her banking app. My first payment to you, she said proudly. It's small, but it's a start. Ethan started to protest. I still think we should have just forgiven the debt. Maya shook her head firmly. I need to pay it back. It's not just money. It's my dignity. It's the one thing I can reclaim with my own hands. Ethan understood. He'd structured the repayment to be symbolic, just enough for Maya to feel she was taking responsibility without hindering her growth or financial stability. That afternoon, corporate auditors arrived for a surprise inspection. Unlike before, when Rick would panic and hide his misconduct, Maya and Lila confidently guided the team through each department, answering every question with transparency and poise. Your employee retention rate has improved dramatically, one auditor noted, and customer satisfaction is up 40%. Happy employees make happy customers, Ethan replied, smiling as he watched the staff collaborate, not competing, not afraid, but supporting one another like a true team. During the monthly all-staff meeting, now held over a catered lunch instead of early morning stress, Ethan stood before the group to announce a new mentorship program. Experienced team members will mentor new hires, he explained. Not just teaching job skills, but sharing life lessons. Listening, understanding, helping each other before desperation drives someone to make the wrong choice. Maya, sitting in the front row, gripped Lila's hand tightly, her eyes shimmering. In the back, Tommy clapped proudly as Ethan wrapped up his speech. Outside, the sun was shining brightly, and for Grand Plaza, and for every person who called it home, a new chapter had begun. No one here would have to choose between doing what was right and surviving. Now, everyone had a chance to live, to grow, and to believe in something good again. At the front of the room, Maya quietly wiped away a tear. Ethan hadn't named names, but she knew he was talking about her. Her story had become something of a quiet legend within the company, retold with altered details to protect her privacy, yet carrying a message of redemption and renewal. After the meeting, Ethan stepped into the control room to review security footage from the past month. What he saw brought a lump to his throat. On screen were the same employees who once shuffled through their shifts, weighed down by fear, now walking tall, smiling, proud. Gone were the nervous glances and tired eyes, replaced by connection, purpose, and trust. A soft knock broke his thoughts. Lila stepped in. "Regional director just called," she said. "3 other theaters want to implement our new training program. They're asking to be converted like Grand Plaza." Ethan nodded. He wasn't surprised. What had begun as a crisis had become a blueprint for transformation. From the ashes, Grand Plaza had risen to become a beacon for the entire company. Maya entered, hesitant but resolute. "I have an idea," she said. "Could we start a scholarship fund for employees or their families who want to study medicine?" Tommy's doctor really inspired him. "Write up a proposal," Ethan said without hesitation. "We'll make it happen." That evening, Ethan stood in the lobby, watching the popcorn counter. Tommy, now stronger, was helping his sister bag popcorn, chatting with customers about his dream of becoming a doctor. Maya stood close by, beaming with pride and peace. There was no trace of the terrified girl who once knelt in the shadows, afraid of losing everything. The final showing of the night began. Ethan prepared to head out. As he reached the door, he paused and looked back at the place where it had all happened. That night that changed so many lives. He hadn't just stopped a robbery. He had saved a soul and rediscovered his own purpose, buried beneath the machinery of business. "Good night, Mr. Cole," Maya called from the register, counting the day's receipts in plain sight, not hidden in the shadows anymore. "Good night." Ethan replied with a smile, stepping into the cool night air as a breeze brushed against his collar, whispering of the journey that had brought them here. As he walked to his car, Ethan reflected on the true meaning of success. It wasn't revenue, it wasn't expansion. It was building a space where people could grow, heal, and help each other thrive. Grand Plaza was no longer just a movie theater. It had become a community, a family, a place where second chances weren't just granted, but valued, honored, and repaid with loyalty. The marquee lights glowed over the parking lot. Below the bold letters spelling out "Now Hiring," a new line had been added: "Join our family where every story matters." Tomorrow would bring new challenges. New employees with their own wounds and dreams would walk through those doors. But this time, they wouldn't face it alone. There would be a system in place to catch them before they fell, to remind them that even in their darkest hour, a different path was always possible, if someone cared enough to listen. Grand Plaza now stood as living proof of a truth that once seemed too simple to matter. Empathy is the greatest investment in business. And as Ethan drove off into the awakening city, he knew that this story, this hard-won redemption, was not an ending at all, it was only the beginning.